Office hours take two today. We did one earlier this morning. Sorry, we had Paige on. We were talking some app defense, and Z was gracious enough to join us this evening, or I guess morning, afternoon in APJ for our friends out there. So I thought, we have a lot of customers that utilize Direct Connect, but we have a lot of customers that also ask us questions for how to use Direct Connect. So I thought it might be worthwhile kind of just going over and seeing how things look. Another question we quite often get, and again, I'm putting Z on the spot here as well as myself on the spot, kind of thinking on the fly. But we might want to show those E&I connections as well, and maybe talk a little bit about some of the subnets that AWS creates, because I know that that's a kind of a common
Yeah.
question is, what do I got to pick for subnets? What do I got to do for this and that? And I know that Dustin just put up some videos on our YouTube as well that goes over some of this. But I thought, let's go over it here as well and see what we can come up with.
Yeah, so I've apparently forgotten my password to our account. So let me log into my personal account and we'll be able to show the Direct Connect piece in the back end. I'll see if I can't get logged in here. Holy cow, I've forgotten all my passwords apparently.
If anybody's curious if
there
this
we
is live or scripted,
it seems like it's always with me. We fumble around. We have maintenance windows right in the middle of webinars, things like that. So,
well, that's how you learn. See, it's
improv. I feel like we're taking an improv class. All right, here. Excuse me. Let's see here. So if we look at VPC, and I know we've gone through this with a couple of our other webinars, particularly the multi-AZ or the stretch cluster webinar. I think we showed some fairly interesting to me anyway, portions. Let's see, what do we have here? So what were you thinking? Were you thinking just how the VPC and subnet construct works, or like what do we require?
One of the questions that kind of keeps coming up from a lot of customers that I have is so do I have to create a VPC, and where do I create this VPC, and because a lot of our customers are very VMware centric, and AWS is kind of a foreign concept to them, and I try to communicate to them that if you're never going to use anything AWS, you just got to kind of make the account, and a lot of this stuff is just created by default for you.
Yeah.
But there seems to be a lot of misconception. I've seen guys, some customers even go in and create different VPCs because they think they need to use something non-default, and then they put the management CIDR in there that they wanted to put into VMC because they thought those needed to match, and kind of all these things that, like you said, we've explained in the past, and there's a lot of documentation, but I think it's always worth a little bit of a going over.
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, the VPC. So if you sign up for a new AWS account, if you have, however you do that, you're going to have a VPC in every region, right? So if you click the little drop down at the top here, you can see all the regions. Let's see one I've never even looked at. So South America might be a little on the slow side. So I've never done anything with the South American region. If we look at our VPC, we've got our /16. If we look at our subnets, we should have 3 of them, assuming that we have 3 availability zones there, which we do. And then you get it with 3/20s. So, and this is going to be the same thing for all of them, right? I think that even it's the same ranges. So it ends up being look at that. They don't actually coincide ABC from lowest to highest, but whatever.
So, and another thing to touch upon here too is if you have multiple AWS accounts, those A, B's, and C's may not be the same A, B's, and C's.
Exactly.
Across.
So, yep. So I mean, so my 1A, my South American East 1A is probably not your South American East 1A. Given a large enough set of customers, we may find ones that equal across, but they are randomized from account to account. So even if you have, like you said, if you're a customer that has, tens or hundreds of AWS accounts, those are going to be randomized across the two? It's a good question. I'm not sure if there's a way, if there's a mapping service or how that works. If there's like a master account and then it all trickles down. That's a good question. I never
Yeah, I think
just
there
thought of that.
is a way to actually find this out, but I think that AWS does this to a degree because there are customers that do the subnet shuffling with like EC2 instances to try to get it into the right availability zone or what they think is the right availability zone. So I think that it might be a kind of a anti
Yeah.
rigging type thing. But I just like to bring that up because if customers are trying to get these all into the same or actually probably more often more different availability zones, just because you pick A in one and B in another doesn't mean that they're actually different availability zones.
Exactly. And I mean, and if you have luck like I have, if you were trying to actually have them in different ones for availability reasons, they would end up being in the same, or on the same sense, if I was trying to get them both in the same, they would end up being different. Like I just wouldn't be able to win. But that's just because my middle name's Murphy.
But but along that point, our answer to that for those customers who are looking for this is the multi-AZ cluster, like we covered
Yep.
probably a few months ago. So definitely go back and check that out if you guys are looking at protecting against AZ failure. That's really the way to go because, like we said, otherwise you're kind of playing AZ roulette,
Yep.
and
It
you're
doesn't.
making it right and
It's
you
not.
might not.
Yeah. That's yeah.
But
If
when you
you're
get
like
a
me.
multi-AZ cluster, for sure you will be spanning two different availability zones.
Yep. So the subnets, right? So I mean, so these are the defaults, and it's and every region, right? So we're looking at Sao Paulo. Let's go something. We'll do something a little closer here. We'll look at Tokyo. Um, Actually, I don't know if that's technically closer or not as the bird flies, but if you look at Tokyo, same thing, right? So it's great in the sense that it's all there, that you don't have to do anything. Um, you know, it, it's just there. It's bad in the sense that they're all the same. So if you have workloads that need to communicate to each other, from between Sao Paulo and Tokyo, it's gonna be pretty difficult if they're sharing the same IP space. Same thing if you want to connect back to on-prem. If you're using this IP space on-prem, same thing if you want to use this as your management subnet in VMC or anything like that, right? It's just conflicting IPs.
Yeah,
Um,
and the key point here is, and like I said, this has come up a little recently with some of my customers, is that they think that this subnet needs to encompass the VMC management subnet as well, which is
yeah,
not correct.
yep, yep. So yeah, that'll definitely conflict. So what's happening? So we're looking at my AWS account, and more specifically my personal AWS account. So if I don't have anything running in here. I'm pretty sure I don't anyway, or I guess I hope I don't. So if I create something, so if we come over here, services, EC2, and I go to create a new instance. So ultimately, my instances, just pick something here. Here, like an R5, right? Um, it's the same thing, right? So the instance types that we use in VMware Cloud and AWS, we have the i3 metal and we have the R5 metal, or the soon to be R5, or that'll be coming out here shortly, for the EBS back vSAN. But it's an EC2 instance. So the difference is that when those instances are launched, aka when you deploy your SDDC, they're running in a VMware owned and managed AWS account. So when you come in here and you look at this, and that's to your point, Matt, when you want to say, oh, I want my management subnet to be inside of my subnet in my AWS account. Well, we have your instances running in our AWS account, and we're linking those with the cross account ENI, um, and it just won't work because it's the same IP space. So you may get lucky in the sense that we're not using the same IPs, and we may be able to make it work. I say that in some extreme caution. Like, I mean, it's definitely not advisable.
Well, I think the default answer is don't do it, please.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah. I mean, definitely, it's. I mean, if for some reason, yeah, it would be very painful and be very tricky, right? And it may work and it may not work. And just like the availability zone roulette, you would just be playing, I guess, cross account ENI roulette, or whatever have you. I think about that.
But yeah, so the main point, I guess, that we're trying to make here as well is if you're new to the service, you're new to AWS, there's really nothing you need to do on the AWS side to set up your VMware SDDC.
Um, Yeah, I guess yes and no. I mean, so the if you have no connectivity, so I do have one customer that's using VMware Cloud on AWS, and there's absolutely zero connectivity back to on-prem. In that case, it completely doesn't matter what you do in your AWS account that's linked. What you do for the management subnet really doesn't matter. But if you have any connectivity back to on-prem, or maybe not even back to on-prem, or any connectivity to anything else, right? Anything private, um, you have to make sure that there's no overlapping IP space. It's just I'm sure there's some age-old adage that goes with that, but it just doesn't work. Um, so yeah, if your on-prem is using this, the 172.31, which I think is fairly common, right? Then yeah, I mean, you don't have to use this. You can delete it. You can create a new one. You can leave this one and create a new one. They don't need to be /20s. So one of the things you're talking about earlier is what does the subnet size of my AWS account have to be? And the minimum is a /26, and that'll give us, I believe, 62 IPs out of that subnet. And the reason, I know if we have anybody watching, I'm not sure what the numbers are, but why does it have to be a minimum of a /26? That gives us the ability to scale the SDDC to its potential maximum size for cluster 0 or cluster 1, um, which is the only cluster that's going to have the cross account ENIs. So it gives us more, right? We could possibly get away with a /27 with only 30 IPs, but that's not quite enough. So that's the
Well,
reason.
and further to that point is you don't really want to kind of hamstring yourself if if you're planning on any kind of expandability.
Yep.
This
Oh yeah.
cannot be undone once you
Yeah.
select it. You would have to blow it up and recreate it, which I think would be a lot more than it's worth. But that question, and I'm glad you clarified that, because that question does come up a lot. Is why do I need all these IP addresses?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so and I mean, I guess to that point, since we're kind of talking about the networking stuff, so you need a /26 out of your AWS account that you're going to link to. Then we need a management range that's going to either be a 23, a 20, or a 16, which is large, right? Even a 23, that's what 500 and is it 500? It's not 512. It's like 510 or something like that IPs. That's a lot, right? But associated with each host, aka each EC2 instance, in the SDDC, there's what I think is there 7 IPs for each one? Is there 6? I don't
Yeah, I
remember
believe
the
so. And
total.
I'm still trying to find our AWS account number. And I apologize to everybody. I was looking for this earlier. I got a new computer, and I hit, old man had the account ID saved because it does show it in there.
Here, no, I can send you the account number if you can log in, and maybe if you
Yeah,
can
I'll
log
give that
in,
a
you can
try.
reset my password. Let me send this over here.
Because yes,
Um,
that's what a lot of that the space is used for is for those ENI connections and the information in there.
yeah. Oh, look at that. I opened up this other one, and it. So yeah, I mean, so there's a number of IPs that are associated to it, and just like you don't want to hamstring yourself with doing, say a /27, and then you end up actually needing to go to the maximum size. It's the same thing for us, right? So we as VMware, we're offering a service, and depending on the scalability of the SDDC, new features, new offerings that come out of part of it that may need additional IPs out of that, we don't want to be hamstrung by offering a smaller subnet size.
Exactly. All right. I'm just trying to get in here. I think I'm in. Just making sure there's nothing else in here that I want to show.
Yeah, and I think so. I do have an SDC up, so I can show the ENIs.
Okay.
Um, so when the account gets linked, right? So I switched to Oregon. If you guys saw there, I'm not using the default VPC. I have created a new one. It's smaller, right? So my overall VPC, so the VPC construct is per region, um, and then the subnets are per availability zone. So I've gone through and allocated a /24 for each one of the AZs in Oregon, and you can see that I'm using 17 IPs. I believe should be the number uh, out of here. Maybe it's 18. So if we look at this, oh, I need to go to the other place here. So if we look at our network interfaces, we have 17 of them. So this is the cross account ENI. So we have the ENI interface. This is the ENI that lives in the VMware owned and managed account where your SDDC runs, and the availability zone that it's in, associated subnet and VPC. And then there's so the do not use, right? So it's showing our SDDC number and the number of them, right? So 0 through 16. And you'll see one in use. So I do have a single node SDDC that's deployed currently. So that's why we have one that's in use, and you'll always see one with a secondary IP address as well. This is ultimately where the ESG runs, is currently running on which host. And that's where the traffic. So if you were to pass traffic from your SDDC into your AWS account or vice versa, that's where that traffic would go to this particular ENI right here between the two in my case. And you'll notice that, so you're probably wondering, well, why are there 17 of them in here if you only have a one node SDDC? So we pre-provision these, and it's on SDDC deployment. So if you just go through the account linking process, none of these ENIs will be there. It's only once you've clicked on the deploy SDDC button. I don't know if it's the absolute first process that runs, but it's pretty close. It's pretty high up there. But once you click on it, by the time you get logged into your account and looking at the screen, they're probably already going to be there.
But as to the 16 point, so
Oh, that's right.
we size it up there for 16 hosts is our I hate the term best practices, but is our guidance around the maximum cluster size, and then one more for the host that we add while we're doing maintenance.
Yep.
So that's why we pre-pop this, so that we ensure that we have this ready to go. If you guys decide to scale from a 1 to a 3 to a 6 to a 16,
yep,
all of this is reserved and ready to go. We don't run into any problems.
Yep. So then the question, right? So what happens if you delete these? And you can delete them. So if we select this guy here and delete, again, it's your AWS account. You can do what you want with it. So the one I deleted was not in use. It was a one node STDC. So, I can really come through here and delete all of these if I wanted. My STDC will still run. I will still have AWS connectivity between my SDDC and any AWS services. However, if I delete this guy, right, it's an ENI. Think of it as the network cable that's spanning between your SDDC and your AWS account. If you delete it, well, you're removing that. So your SDDC will continue to run. There's no adverse effect, except that you no longer have connectivity into your AWS account. Native connectivity. You could establish a VPN or anything like that. But the native ENI is going to be much faster than any VPN offering.
And I guess it's worth saying, the cross connection is used for services like EC2, S3, RDS, EFS. I think those are 4 we officially support now.
Let me see here. I got to look at my fingers. EC2, S3, EFS, RDS, and I thought there was one more.
It could be the ELB. No, I don't think it's ELB. Anyway, but those 4 services for sure talk over that cross connect and that ENI, and is a free of charge data transfer. So, backing things up to S3 or pulling files out of S3, or the VM in EC2 talking to a VM in VMC, that traffic in between the two is free. Which traditionally in AWS, when you talk between different VPCs, there's a charge. Varying degrees of charges, whether it's cross AZ, cross region, internet. But that's why they're there. So I would say that there's quite a few of our customers that could probably live for forever without having this there. But it's there for all those use cases, and always good to just not delete stuff like Z did. But it was a good demonstration.
Yeah, no, total no. Yeah, I always end up doing the disclaimer after the fact. Yeah, I mean, I don't delete them. We do have the ability to recreate them but it's a manual process. And if you are relying on the SDDC to AWS connectivity, um, it's going to be down until we can restore that. So again, it's a manual process. I don't have a timeline on it, but I would assume that any downtime to that type of connectivity would not be welcomed. So um, one thing you will also note is that like during a maintenance window, or let's say that for some reason a host fails or anything like that, or maybe you scale up a host and for whatever reason the ESG moves, you will see that this secondary IP will change. It'll move to a different ENI, and then that traffic will then be going to that. So think of these. You can kind of think of these as the hosts on the other side in the other AWS account. So when that moves, and you can see that if you go back and look at some of the two videos that we've done for the multi AZ demos, I actually move the ESG from one availability zone to the other and show that, so you can actually see when that ESG is vMotion from one to the other, it gets updated, not only in the network interfaces section, but also in the route table. So if we come back, and if we look at our route table, so we can. Oh, I guess we have a couple here that I haven't cleaned up. Live demo. Um, so for our subnet, and then so this is the management range of my SDDC. This is a compute range. Actually, both of these are compute ranges, and you can see it points to this ENI. So D9FF and D9FF. So yeah, if it was a multi-node SDDC, I could show that. But yeah, if you go back and look at the save YouTube videos on it, I'm pretty sure it's in both of those. So
No, that's good. Thanks for showing that. See, I think that's handy information for people to know, because I know there's a lot of questions usually around this kind of basic configuration, and it's good to just kind of always have a little bit of a refresher on it.
yeah, and it's like you said, um, it's not black magic or any type of crazy witchcraft or anything. But it's pretty complex, right? So just trying to understand the ENIs, the two AWS accounts. How is it getting from the SDDC to AWS, or the SDDC to on-prem? How is my data getting from point A to point B? Um, it's very tedious. Michael created that diagram that we saw earlier today. It's good. I mean, it's definitely a step in the right direction to help kind of demystifying what this actually looks like.
Yeah, Z makes some reference to our patriot Michael Kolos, who did all of our diagrams for NSXV, and he's now updated one for T, I think, much to just stop me from hassling him. Um, but you'll see that coming soon, especially in a lot of our slide decks that we'll present at VMugs and such. Do you want to maybe open up the our cloud console? Because the other question we have a lot of times is, okay, so now I got my direct connect. I'm trying to create my private VIF, and it's asking for information. So maybe we could show them where you grab that the direct connect account. So like Z made a little bit of reference to, and we've covered in the past, our SDDCs are wrapped in what we call a shadow VPC. So there's a invisible to you Amazon VPC and account over the top of it, and this comes into play when you do stuff like direct connect. So
Yeah. So let's see here. So you're talking about like actually adding the VIFs for the direct connect, right?
yeah, exactly.
So if we look at connected VPC, so this is my AWS account number. So this is my clever naming. This is my SCDC, my one node. This was my account, right? 6122. If you come over to Direct Connect, which I am not fortunate enough to personally have, you'll notice that this is a different account number. So a lot of times, I know I've had a number of customers. It's like, I instantiated the VIF, I did it. It's just not showing up here. First question is, well, what account number did you attach it to your account, or did you attach it? Did you specify another account? It's usually, well, we didn't specify it, so it's in our own AWS account. So this here is the account number where you would specify it, and I don't know if I can actually do this without having it.
Yeah, I don't know. I was looking at our account either, and the one that I was in didn't have the direct connect showing in there either. No, we could show at least what it looks like on our side after Z looks through here to see if it'll add.
Create a connection. No, I think you can, not until a connection is there. I don't even know if I can.
Anyway, when you go through this with AWS, there's a number of prompts it puts through there. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But there are some prompts in there, and I think the first prompt is the account ID, which we showed you there on the other side. So if you go back to the Cloud Console and maybe go to our other SDDC where you can actually see the direct connect, I think they're connected. We'll see here. Drum roll. Yeah, there we go. So you can see once you properly set up that VIF connection, these will auto-populate in this screen. Now, they won't come up with the attached state or BGP status up. You have to click on the three dots there to click attach, and it takes a little bit of time. But as long as you kind of did that AWS account ID right, and there's a bunch of other information in there that's covered by AWS documentation, you'll see these pop up, you click attach, and they'll be brought in.
Yep.
And it's really quite as simple, but like Z said, I've had a couple of customers as well that did this. Oh, I did all the direct connect stuff, and I'm just not seeing it in this page. And that's usually why, is the account ID.
Yep. And then, so, I mean, while we're here, another good piece is, so our advertised routes, if we look at this, let's see, I'm going to guess, that our management range is a 1072. Okay, so 1072.108/23. So out of the /23, we break this up into some smaller ranges, and you can see those here. So this guy, this guy, this guy. Where are the other ones coming from, right? So let's see, we have a 66.
And a 192. The other thing that kind of is good to mention here to a degree as well is we do create, and Z's looking at this right now, the segments, is we do automatically create a compute network for you.
Yep.
So that's why there's other customers we've had that have set up the direct connect and have started doing some stuff, and they're like, I'm seeing this 192 thing. Where's this coming from? Well, that would be in here. I think we must have removed ours.
Yeah, this one's been removed. Let's see if this guy's still got it.
So this has been a little bit of a debate internally for us. We've actually been a proponent of removing this default network because it's caused more problems with save. The theory behind why it was there in the first place was just so customers could jump in, start provisioning VMs, and it's hooked up to a network that works and everything goes. It was more for an ease of use thing, but we've kind of, I feel anyway, that we've experienced it's actually been more of a problem than any kind of benefit. So that may or may not.
Yeah, it's very similar to the default VPC and subnets in AWS, right? I'm not sure why this guy is failing here, but that is a default. I don't know that I still have the default one attached to mine. I think I've deleted it as well.
Yeah. So we were looking at a few options. We were looking at maybe a short term of just removing it. The other is on the SDC creation to have a checkbox whether you would like one created, and possibly the option of specifying it as well when you do it. But I just like to bring that up because I have had a couple customers that said, okay, well, I clicked on my direct connect. Now I'm seeing this BGP advertisement for this 192 network.
Yep.
And it's in here, and you can remove it like we have. There's absolutely nothing. There's nothing that we have put in there. That's for you to consume. So as long as somebody hasn't come along and dropped a bunch of VMs in that network on you when you weren't looking, you can go ahead and freely delete that if you so choose.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, what we're going to advertise is going to be whatever's in the SDDC. So if you create a new segment in here, with whatever
It's also
range.
actually, I think, a funny point that I'd like to bring up here as well is, yes, segments are the new, what do we call them? Logical networks.
Yeah, I think in V it was logical networks,
Yeah,
correct?
logical networks, which is kind of like a port group for, if you're thinking about this in base VMware vSphere terms. Because I have had a couple of customers say, "Well, I need to go add a port group so I can get access to this network." Okay, well, we don't let you do that. This is the new place to create those things, and we call them network segments now. So
Yep, yep.
you got to keep up with the
Um,
verbology.
yeah, you gotta. It has to be changed a little bit. Keep everybody on their toes. Um, so with Direct Connect, there's no control over it currently. So whatever's in the SDDC is what we're going to advertise back. What we learn it would be how it's configured on-prem. So if you're advertising a default route, as we're doing here, one thing to note is that if you're advertising a default route, whether it's Direct Connect or VPN, all traffic, excuse me, will go back to whatever that connection is, wherever the other end of that is. So in our case, we have a direct connect. So all traffic in and out, internet traffic, things bound for private access will all go back to our on-prem setup, or a lab in this case. Some customers may want that for packet inspection, security requirements, things like that. Some customers may want the SDDC to have direct internet access. So if you think of it just like data going out of the IGW in your native AWS account, same type of principle. In order to do that, you'd have to advertise explicit routes. Then you could not do a default. With a VPN, you will get the option. With actually, sorry, it's only policy based. So if we do route based, again, there's on the SDDC side, we advertise what we have and we learn whatever's being advertised from the other end of the connection. We do have some features that are coming to be able to control this a little bit better. To you know, I don't remember I think that was today. I forgot what was on the screen verbiage wise, but just really BGP control, so filtering weights, things like that from the SDDC side. So right now, whether it's direct connect or whether it's route based layer 3 VPN, it all needs to be controlled. Whatever you're advertising needs to be limited from on-prem, and particularly what you're if you do not want to learn all routes back, you would need to filter that on-prem as well.
Yeah, no, that's definitely good information because I do have a couple customers just like, well, my internet connection, my internet traffic's not going out the internet. But like you said, there are some customers I have as well that don't want that either. So it's good that we're kind of covered with that. So another thing we could touch upon here with the T SEC is we do have that route based VPN, which currently does work with the Amazon Transit Gateway. Now it's somewhat limited functionality, but when that support statement was made, particularly by our friends at AWS, that the VMC works with the TGW, it's via VPN. We're
Yep.
coming out with more enhancements to use it natively, but that's what it is. And if you're in an old V1, that gets really complex. I brought up a little bit this morning, but at the very least, with the Transit Gateway and the NSXT route-based VPN, there is that functionality you can use with the Transit Gateway today.
Yep. And yeah, I mean, to delve into that a little more, so the TGW does offer ECMP, or equal cost multipathing, for the multiple VPN connections. However, on the VMC side, it is active standby, so we can establish the two VPN connections back to the TGW, but we will only use one at a time. So we also are looking at exploring some additional features around that as well.
Yeah, I just like to highlight that is because I know that there's some blogs out there and some general information that yeah VMC works with the TGW. So
Yep.
I always kind of like to put a little bit of framework around. Yes, we do. However,
Yep. Yeah, so I mean, and that's the same thing. So I have one customer as well who's looking at using Transit Gateway, but also you cannot attach a direct connect directly to it. So they're, in the meantime, they're doing VPN from the SDDC into the Transit Gateway, and then from the Transit Gateway VPN back to on-prem. So the amount of rework would be minimal. Would be a downtime event to be able to change that. I'm not sure what it'll look like with the native Transit Gateway support. I would just assume, just from a technical perspective, just thinking about how it would work, that it should be pretty easy to go from a VPN connectivity to the native. Um, but we'll have to see, I suppose.
Oh, that's good. I'm just trying to think of what else we could discuss here in this area. Like I said, we've done quite a few things in this area. If anybody has any questions, either in the Zoom chat or on Twitch, you can go ahead. Otherwise, we're just going to be kind of clicking around here. Now, do you want to maybe show that route-based VPN just to show the configuration a little bit? Like I said, I know we've been through a lot of this before, but
So it looks like I'm not sure whose this is here, but let's see what we got. So it's a very similar type setup, right? Especially from the VPN configuration. So we have the phase one, the phase two. We have our encryption algorithms, our pre-shared key. If your VPN device on-prem is behind a NAT device, we'll need to know the private IP, and you'll need 500 and 4500 allowed for the NAT traversal. Um, it's VPN stuff like this for me. It's just it's just matching things up, just the matching game. Or I always think of it as the little kids game with the blocks. You can't put a square block into a round hole type of a thing. um, you can try, but your VPN tunnel won't come up in this case. Or if you're playing the little kids game like I envision in my brain, then you're just not going to be able to complete it. But um, so you go through, you're going to put in your IP address. I would demo it in my lab in real time, um, but I've got to make some changes. And since I'm talking on VoIP, I have a feeling that if whatever I change is going to disconnect us. So I
no,
will.
no, that's fine. I appreciate the effort. I just
Yeah,
like to.
we'll just leave Matt hanging there.
Yeah,
There's
no, I
like
could, I could, I could
my
talk
backpack.
for at least another 20 minutes, no problem.
But so same setup, right? So we're looking for a /30, which gives us two usable IPs. So this one here is going to be the IP of the VMC side, and then our remote. Obviously, they need to be in needs the remote IP needs to be in the /30 that we specify in this configuration. There are a couple of IPs that need to be excluded. I think it will tell you here, right here. And this is also not all inclusive. This is a perfect time for me to call this out. Let me pull up my notes on another screen here. Um, Let me see. Where is it? Where is it? Networking. So on top of this 101, we've got 254, 10 dot, 11 dot, 12 dot, and 13 dot. And those are all /24s. Those are also used internal to the SDDC. You will not be able to use any /30 inside of those ranges. Did also have a customer that ran into that. I think it was late last week. We'll get this added to this little information bubble here. Enter the two, our remote ASN number, and that's it. If you have a BGP secret, you need to supply that there. So once the tunnel's established, then we'll go through. Can't show it here, obviously. Since, I guess we could enable this. I don't know what it is. See if it comes up. Um, so once our VPN tunnel comes up, then we'll go ahead and do the BGP pairing, and we'll learn whatever's being advertised up, and we'll advertise back whatever. Oh, I thought it came up. So if we refresh this guy, so BGP will take a second. This is a perfect example. I have no idea what we're connecting to here.
Yeah, just so everyone knows as well is that this is our test VPC, so we do all kinds of crazy things in here occasionally. Um,
Well, there's multiples, right? So Matt and myself, and we mentioned Michael, and I think we have 8 or 9 people on our team now. So yeah, there's no telling. So this may or may not come up. I would have expected it to come up by now. Usually, I would say 15, 20 seconds after the fact. Um, so I guess I'm not too surprised that it didn't come up, but
yeah, patience is a virtue. You should know this by now in the IT world.
I'm not patient. But at least, I mean, if I knew what this was, I could look on Prim and be like, oh well, it's because my
Yeah.
IP is wrong, something else. But yeah, so we can sit there and let the oh look at that, it did come up.
Oh, there, look at that. See, success.
So
That's
and
why
I'm
they
sure
call us
that was,
customer success, right?
and I'm sure.
Uh,
Oh, and then look at that,
uh,
success and then
and then you
unsuccess.
broke the world. I have been actually warned that we do some of our scheduled maintenances on Tuesday nights.
Yep.
That could be what we ran into there.
Yeah.
Now, we could talk about this. We don't really need to show it, but what are the other feedbacks I get a lot too, or we see a lot of these things come in through chat and through other mechanisms of, well, I set this VPN up and I'm trying to pick my vCenter, but it's not responding.
Yes. So there is a maintenance going on. So if you're not aware, status.vmware-services.io show you what's going on. Schedule maintenance. Um, yeah, it just so happens to be right over the top of our webinars.
Yeah, we might have to change to Wednesday or something. At
This is
least
the
for the
second
night
time.
ones, because
It,
this
it,
is
it's
the
got to be me. I told you my
yeah.
middle
No,
name's Murphy.
I have been warned about this before, but anyway, the point we were getting to there is the firewall will block this.
Yep.
So your connectivity might be fine, but you're trying to do a ping, ICMP will be blocked.
Well, and you got a couple of different things, right? So, yeah, the firewall by default, once you deploy your SDDC and once it's fully deployed and you log into it and you're looking at the screens that we were looking at, it's a default denial. So it's you're gonna have to go in and either establish VPN or direct connectivity or open it up and allow access over the internet. But that's your choice, right? So we're not going to just leave your SDDC open to the internet by default and then expect you to secure it. We're going to secure it and then expect you to allow what should be allowed in. Um, Also, so by default, Virtual Center is set to resolve to the public IP address, so that'll be natted in, so you can access it from the internet ultimately. So once you've established private connectivity, either VPN or Direct Connect, then you'll be able to change the DNS resolution to private, and that'll resolve to the private IP. That it'll be an IP in the range that you specified for the management subnet.
Yeah, no, that's thanks for that. So I think if if there's anybody out there who has any questions, I think that we're probably covered what we can tonight. Seeing as we smacked into maintenance, and that comes right back up potentially.
Oh no,
No,
nope.
still not. So I appreciate that. Like I said, this is our second webinar today. We did one this morning, talked to with Paige around app defense. We have a webinar next week, one of the more official ones. So this is our office hours where we kind of do things like this and just kind of play around and talk through some stuff. And I really do appreciate you coming out and talking about this with me. Next week is going to be Faction's going to be on, and we're going to be on at 8 o'clock in the morning PST. And they're going to talk through they have a very cool solution built upon VMware Cloud. Then we're going to kind of have another office hours, and then after that, we're going to bring back Paige to go over the new and updated dashboard apparently that's coming to App Defense. And then, like I always say, tweet at me at vcloudmatt or email us at cloudcs@vmware.com. If you have any ideas or any feedback or anything you want to see going forward, anything you want covered by us, as you could tell, we're pretty open and honest about what works and what doesn't and how you have to configure things and don't. So we'll always give you the real deal. and we want to make sure that this content is definitely of value to people out there. And this recording will go up on YouTube, as all of our recordings do. I highly recommend, if you have more questions or want some more in depth around this. We did one, and I want to say it was like October, something like that.
The multi AZ one that we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier. I'd have to go back and look at it, but yeah, that sounds about right. It was.
It was somewhere in there. So anyway, it's on our YouTube page. Is that one? There's also one that my compatriot Dustin just put up that goes over a lot of the networking. I think we did another session a long time ago about networking and direct connects as well. So there's lots of content up there if you feel like dropping by there and wanted to see any of the stuff we've done before. We are looking at expanding some of the content. We're working kind of as a greater group as well to do some more enablement stuff. And one of the things we thought of, and it'd be good to get some feedback from everybody out there about trying to create maybe some shorter videos that just kind of do a little one-ofs how to configure things, as opposed to having to listen to me yammer for 45 minutes to see the one setting that you can't quite figure out. But yeah, definitely give me your feedback and anything, like I said, anything else you want to see. And like I said, next week, 8 a.m., we'll be doing the faction partner session, and we're going to go from there. If there's Z, have any closing remarks?
No, I was gonna say same thing. So you can tweet at me as well at VMA to Z. Clever. Anybody hasn't picked up on that yet? Same thing, and if you come across one of the videos and say, this looks really old, or this looks, can you do an updated one? We're transitioning from NSXV to NSXT, so some of our videos may be old, and maybe you just want a refresher on it, or maybe you want to ask a question in real time. It'd be a good way for us to come up with content that matters ultimately.
Perfect. Now, I do feel like I need some kind of closer, so I should probably work on that. But
Stay classy, San Diego.
yeah, there you go. And maybe I'll end on we'll end on Z saying "stay classy," VMware. But I look forward to thank everybody for their time, and I will see everybody next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.